Hey, what's going on everybody? Jay here, and welcome to another episode of Jay's Trains. Today I'm going to be talking a little bit about my shelf layout because I got a lot of folks commenting and messaging me on social media about how exactly it was built, the track I use, and all that. So without further ado, let's get started. So the shelf layout itself actually occupies a spare room approximately 14 by 13 feet. Being in the home that I'm in this part of Florida, which is north of Tampa, houses don't really have too many extra rooms, so wasn't able to have an actual layout, which is where I first got the idea of having the shelf layout. Since I had a bunch of spare track left over from a previous layout I wanted something that I could actually run two trains at once, so I wanted to make the shelves wide enough to encompass two tracks, and to make use of my 072 and 081 curves. All the supplies I got that I used to build the shelf layout, I actually conveniently got at one location, which was Home Depot, so that made it easy. The plywood itself I used is actually 3/4 inch plywood because I wanted something sturdy enough to support the weight of my steam locomotives. And the brackets I used are actually all metal brackets, and they are able to support 50 pounds each. So I equally spaced them throughout the layout, and that gives it enough sturdy strength to hold up the trains. Now, as I mentioned, this whole layout does actually have two loops of track. All the track that I used is Gargrave's track, with the exception of a Ross Custom switch, which is a double crossover. Unfortunately, one of the switches on this has actually broken recently, so eventually I'll probably be switching this out, but for the time being, it gets the job done. Since I want to be able to run two trains at once comfortably, especially my larger engines that require 072, the straight sections of the layout I ended up cutting to be 12 inches wide, and then the curved sections I just cut to fit. Along the walls on all four sides of the layout, I ended up spacing the track at a minimum of 2 inches away. This way, engines that require 072 curves could operate without hitting the wall, since they do have a decent amount of overhang even on 081. Even though I'm using 072 and 081 curves, I still do actually have a decent amount of space in all four corners of the layout, so this gives me plenty of room to, in the future, play around with scenery and stuff like that. Now, the whole layout itself is actually 11 inches down from the ceiling, and the reason for that is actually along this one wall there's actually a closet. Now, in order to do the layout along this wall, I wasn't able to actually put brackets there. So what I had to do was take the brackets that I'd gotten from Home Depot, and I was able to take out the braces that were on them. And all I had to do was just switch them upside down, and I was able to install them, and it was able to give them enough of a support along this one wall. In order to dampen the sounds from the trains running on just bare wood, I ended up getting a product from a company out in Texas called Widget Company. And this product was large rolls of cork that were approximately 1.5 feet wide by 1/8 of an inch thick, and I was able to just easily roll this out on top of the whole layout and staple it down into place. There definitely was some overhang, but I was easily able to just cut that off, and once I got that done, the track went down pretty easily, and I just used 3/4 inch screws to securely fasten the tracks down. To power the layout, all I ended up having to use was one Lionel brick, and from that I'm able to power both my Lionel Legacy and MTH DCS systems. So with both systems, I'm able to run both my Lionel and MTH engines no problem. A good product for lighting that I ended up using were strips of LED lights that I actually ended up getting off of Amazon, and they were actually pretty cheap, but I'm very happy with the results. They do a good job in lining up the layout so trains aren't running in the dark. In the near future, perhaps sometime over the winter, there is some more work I would like to do with this shelf layout. In particular, I would like to start ballasting the track and perhaps even working a little bit more with scenery. One other thing that I do have to add to the layout is when I got all of the supplies, I ended up getting 1 inch thick crown molding that I would like to put around the edges to kind of finish off that kind of rough looking look when you look at it directly from the side. But apart from that, the layout is mostly done construction wise. But apart from that, I would really like to work on scenery and stuff, and perhaps even start getting some buildings and stuff like that wired up to put in the corners, and just do like experiments and stuff like that, see what would fit, what would look good, and would just add to the overall running experience with the trains. As you guys have probably noticed too, I do have some HO tracks set around the edges, and that being because before I got into collecting O-gauge trains many years ago, I actually had a decent amount of HO stuff that I had, and still to this day, it's just sitting in boxes not being used. So I just experimented with that a little bit to see if that's something I want to do or not. So I may or may not, I don't know, we'll see. And with that, we have reached the end of this video. Thank you guys all so much for watching. Leave a like, comment down below. If you're watching this on YouTube, please consider hitting that subscribe button. I would really appreciate it. I did my best to answer as many questions as I could. If there are any more, feel free to comment down below. This is Jay from Jay's Trains, signing off. I will see you guys next time.